What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We have an amazing episode for you guys today. Talking waiver wires, talking keeper cut, talking injuries. It's week 4 of football, just about. We still have 2 football games left tonight, so hopefully you guys are winning your week or will win your week after tonight. So it's a big game tonight. A lot of players still going. I know I'm in leagues where like half my lineup hasn't even played yet because there's so many impactful players playing on Monday Night Football. So it's a lot of fun. And of course, we got Coach Tyler in the building. What's going on, Coach Tyler?
What's up, guys? Honestly, just drop all your tight ends. They're useless anyways, unless you have Dallas Goedert. It's terrible. But yeah, let's get into it, figure out who we need to keep and who is ready to jump back on the waiver wire.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to get right into that right now. And we're going to start here off at the top here. So I'll read through some of these names real quick, and then Coach Tyler will talk about it here. So injuries from week 3, Trey McBride suffered a concussion. He is in the concussion protocol. Adam Thielen, hamstring injury after catching a touchdown on Sunday. Sam Laporta, I believe it's a low ankle sprain, if I'm not mistaken. So that's good news, but still not great news. Tank Dell, hand injury. He's supposedly fine. Justin Herbert re-aggravated his ankle sprain. So not great. A player that you probably shouldn't have had playing this weekend, but the Chargers went and did that anyway. Skylar Thompson has a rib injury. Dolphins starting quarterback. Sam Darnold, Justin Jefferson, knee injury, finger injury. Both seem to be pretty fine. Devonta Smith, concussion. He's also in the protocol. Van Jefferson, eye injury. He left the game at some point. Anything you want to mention on these injuries here, Coach Tyler?
Really the only one, I feel like most of these are pretty straightforward. You know, they're calling Laporta day-to-day. Obviously with concussion, most likely just going to miss this next week. It doesn't seem anything severe, but he could also go through and pass concussion protocol. They didn't come out and say whether it was, mild or anything light. But really the injury that intrigued me, obviously as a Texans fan, I was watching that Texans-Vikings game, in Justin Jefferson's finger injury. It was something that just kind of popped up. He got it checked out. But the second half, he just didn't look overly comfortable catching the ball, had a couple that were right in his hands, non-contested, and they were just slipping through. And so it's definitely something that I would want to monitor just because it's an injury that could linger. It's an injury that is really weird if it's something that continues to sort of stop him from catching the ball because he's a wide receiver, and that's really all we need him to do unless they just give him all the jet sweeps in the world. But yeah, that finger injury is one that I'm personally keeping an eye on. I have a lot of Justin Jefferson in a lot of my leagues, but it was also just an injury that kind of freak thing that happened. But when you see multiple drops from a guy of Jefferson's caliber, especially when they're wide open, it doesn't make you feel good about the injury and kind of what it can turn into.
And that's fair. Yeah, I mean, that's something to monitor, but hopefully it is not something that we need to really, truly worry about. So we can only hope we don't need more star players really going down with injuries. The concussions are something to monitor throughout the week. Obviously, Trey McBride and Devonta Smith, both in concussion protocol. Something you might want to consider when you're looking at your lineups because there's a chance. It might be small now. It's not like how it was a year or two ago when that whole concussion thing went down, but there is a chance that they do miss this action. So just keep that in mind when both Trey McBride and Devonta Smith, when looking at your roster, if you're looking for a tight end or a wide receiver, you might want to pick them up on waivers earlier than later, just in case. So great. Again, thankfully, nothing truly bad in terms of injuries that are like long-term. I think we got away with a decent week. So it has been a lot worse. So we're thankful for that. So let's get over to the keep and cut segment of the show here. Players that we're going to keep or cut. A lot of names on this list, a lot of name value names on this list too. We'll go through the motions here. Starting off with Javonte Williams here. Coach Tyler, is he a keep or cut candidate for you?
He's working his way to cut. Even in a high-scoring win for the Broncos this week, something that we really didn't expect to see, especially against a good Tampa Bay team. He's still only getting half the snaps, 5 rushes for 12 yards. He's averaging, I think, just over 2 yards a carry this season, if I'm correct, and that's on 24 total carries through 3 weeks. So not anything that excites me. He still has a little bit of receiving value. We saw 4 receptions on 4 targets this week, 5 on 5 last week. So there still is some PPR value if you're in like a 32-man league or something. But in a normal 10, 12 team league, this offense isn't good enough to have a bad player in the offense continually taking up a roster spot for me.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm on the cut side here. I just don't see an opportunity where like Javonte Williams is going to be able to be successful. I mean, he's playing most of the snaps. He's over 50% of the snaps, but like there's just no value in the touches he's getting. I mean, 5 carries this past week in a blowout win. Like, come on, there's a reason behind that. Come on. So, I mean, I'm okay cutting him and allowing someone else to hold on to that just dying asset, unfortunately. So, same can be said very similar to the next guy here, Zamir White, who so far Zamir White this season, been a major disappointment. Under 6 fantasy points and half-point PPR leagues. This was the matchup for him to kind of break out and have a really good week. And 10 carries, 34 yards, no PPR value really to his game here. Is he a cut or a keep? Tyler?
He's a cut for me. They have had the conversation. Antonio Pierce came out today and said they haven't ruled out a quarterback change, but also with Aiden O'Connell coming in, there's no promise that the offense does get any better.
Yeah.
Obviously, he had a little bit of a run last year, but that doesn't make immediate improvements to the run game. And with the inefficiency out of Zamir White, I'm okay dropping him.
Yeah, I mean, the matchups on like Crazy Gray, Cleveland, Denver, Pitt, the Rams, I guess, are a really good matchup, but even still, like, it's just like they're not going to run the ball very efficiently all season. There's not going to be a lot of games where they're going to probably be ahead. So Zamir White is just a 10 to 12 carry guy. And then if he's not getting 80 or 90 yards on those, like it's very poor for fantasy football. So I'm on the same page, cut him. Let's see. Next one up on the list is Jalen Warren, Pittsburgh Steelers, RB2 supposedly on this team here. And it was not like that in week 3 here as his playing time got cut down to 34% here. And Cordell Patterson was being very involved in this offense. Now, maybe could have been just not to get him hurt. He was coming off an injury. But Jalen Warren, honestly, this season has not been great at all for fantasy football. Under 10 fantasy points in each game so far. Coach Tyler, keep or cut Jalen Warren?
I'm going to hold him for one more week. They go to Indy, and obviously Arthur Smith is not a big fan of fantasy football because he just wants to play players that no one cares about, like Cordell Patterson. But they go to Indy. This should be a run-heavy game for the Steelers. Indy's run defense has been pretty Swiss cheese this year. And so I want to see if in a run game where especially they're going to lean on Najee Harris, eventually they're going to have to put someone in to give them a breather. And so is Cordell Patterson taking the spot at RB2, or is Jalen Warren just kind of a week to week if you have to take the guess depending on the defense?
That's fair. I mean, I didn't think I mentioned this, but I did see a tweet earlier today that both Najee and Jalen Warren were banged up in that game. I wish I could find the tweet on that there, but I'll find it out. I'll find it as we keep talking to it. But yeah, for me, I think Jalen Warren's really on that cusp of like just cutting him. Like if I need a running back to give me an RB2 value right now, it's not Jalen Warren. And if there's someone out there like players we'll talk about later, I'm okay cutting him personally. I'm okay with it. I'm just not seeing the same production that we saw last year, even though he may be the more talented back. Gus Edwards, Gus Edwards, I think he had that touchdown in week 1. And ever since then, he didn't even have a touchdown. He's just not good so far this season. He's got under 6 fantasy points in every game. He only had 3 carries this past week in a game where they were behind for most of it. Is Gus Edwards at this point now a keep or cut, Coach Tyler?
I'm going to cut him. It's J.K. Dobbins' backfield. Obviously, with his injury history in the past, I wouldn't put too much weight into not having a handcuff if you have him. But Gus Edwards hasn't looked good, and the Chargers they're just falling apart, right? We see Justin Herbert injured last week, comes out this week, injured again, sort of re-aggravates it. And then they just lost Joe Alt for an unspecified number of weeks, as well as losing Rashawn Slater. So they're out their top 2 tackles on a run team that is possibly missing their star quarterback. It's just not looking like a good offense, not looking like a place that I want a ton of pieces in, especially if it's the RB2 in those pieces.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I also did find a tweet on Harris and Warren. Basically, Harris had a sling on at practice today, so it could be an AC joint, and then Jaylen Warren is getting an MRI on his knee today. So those are 2 things to keep high consideration when it comes to these Steelers running backs this week. It could be a Cordero Patterson 20-point game this week against the Colts. What about Samaje Perine? I know he's just joined back into this, Kansas City Chief offense. Obviously, lost Isaiah Pacheco this past week here. But are you still holding on to him? Obviously, it looks like he's not going to be able to be the RB1 in Kansas City. He did okay, nothing too great, under 6 fantasy points. But is he a keep or a cut after seeing what Carson Steele did, and now Kareem Hunt is signed on the practice squad at least?
Yeah, I'm going to hold him for right now. Like you said, he just kind of re-signed, just kind of got brought back up into actual playing time. Only 38% of snaps, and not outstanding, but also, that's compared to 15 and 14 in the first couple weeks. So we doubled snap percentage. Maybe he can do it again. But he really did have a fairly decent receiving role, 4 targets out of the backfield, only turned in 3 receptions for 15 yards. But I would possibly be willing to hold him up to their bye week. They've got that week 6 bye week, and they go Chargers this upcoming week, and then New Orleans after that. And so I think having those couple weeks, seeing if they start to integrate him more, seeing if he is that third down back coming out of the backfield, and if he continues to hold that PPR value, I'm okay holding him. But if you are holding him, week 6 is my cutoff. If they get into the bye week and nothing has really changed, I'm very happy getting rid of him.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm going to continue to hold him for just the time being. You just don't know what's going to happen in this offense. I mean, I know they were kind of in a neutral game script for most of it, but I'm going to hold on to Perine for just the momentary notice. So a couple quarterbacks here. Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, both have been pretty poor in terms of their fantasy play on the field here. Are you dropping them for other potential options at quarterback right now? Or are you still going to try to ride them out and hope they figure things out?
I'm still going to ride with Jared Goff. I see he hasn't had the start that everyone expected. But as he's, getting comfortable again this season, I think he's going to begin to turn it on. I think that Lions team is just too good, and there's too many weapons for him not to get it going. And, we see, at least week 1, an emergence of Jameson Williams. We see that he has the ability to do something in that offense. Amon-Ra is Amon-Ra. And then if Sam Laporta can stay healthy, that's great. And then he's got Jameer and Montgomery out of the backfield. Like, this is too good of an offense for him not to succeed. And I think that the slow start is going to benefit people that don't have him, but have the ability to make a play on him without losing necessarily a starting quarterback right now. But Kirk Cousins, the Falcons haven't been fully what everyone expected. I guess everyone saw Kirk Cousins throwing the ball 50 times a game last year for the Vikings and expected him to come down and do that for Drake London and Kyle Pitts. But I'm honestly okay. I'll hold Kirk Cousins if I have him. But a couple more bad weeks and I'm okay with a cut on him.
That's fair. Again, I'm okay still sticking with Goff. I think there's going to be better days for Goff in this passing offense. Obviously, I know that the running game has been a touchdown vulture this season here, but I think there will be opportunities for Goff to throw, more multi-touchdown games. Kirk Cousins, I'm kind of okay moving off him at this time being. I mean, he's got somewhat tough matchups got down the stretch here. He's got some divisional games. He's got to play Dallas, Seattle. So with Kirk Cousins, like I'm okay moving off if there's a better quarterback out there on waivers, and especially some of the guys we may be talking about this week here, because you probably didn't pick Kirk Cousins pretty early. So he's probably more of a back end quarterback on your drafts. And so moving off him is not such a big deal. And allow someone else to handle that mediocre play right now, quarterback. So, all right, these are some big names here. Obviously, next up with some tight ends here, Travis Kelce, the once promising elite tight end has been very, very poor to start the season here. I mean, you're looking at a guy who, at this point to start the year, under 6 fantasy points in 3 straight games, 69 combined yards through 3 games. You're probably not cutting Travis Kelce. Obviously, you don't cut Travis Kelce. How concerned are you with him right now? Maybe that's why I put him on this list, just so we could talk about him.
Yeah, really him, and I'm more concerned about Andrews than Kelce.
Right.
But both of them, if I can trade off of them, I will. I sadly have Mark Andrews, especially in a lot of dynasty leagues, and I'm looking to get out of him everywhere that I can. His usage is plummeted, and I know that the week that I begin to get rid of him, he's going to return to vintage Mark Andrews and be fine. So managers, give me a little time to get some deals done, and then you'll be fine. But yeah, it's more so the fact that we're seeing the integration of tight ends behind them come out and do stuff than the fact that they're just slowing down from the once elite that they were, right? We see Charlie Kohler, I think.
30-yard catch.
Charlie Kohler go out and get play, right? We saw week 1 with Isaiah Likely. Noah Gray has been on the field a lot this season for the Chiefs, and they've been even pulling Jared Wiley out there a lot. Like, there's just guys behind them. In the way that these offenses have been formulated to work for the tight ends, I think these coaches are able to plug and play guys, especially as Andrews and Kelce are kind of getting out of that prime. So I'm definitely worried about them. I'm definitely trying to move off of them, even for a lesser name that just might have a little bit more upside.
Yeah, that's tough. I really don't know what to do with these guys besides saying you have to hold on to them and ride out this slump fest that they're dealing with right now. Like in Dynasty, yeah, I mean, if you could try to move them, I mean, go after like the young guys, go after if you could get a first still or a couple second round picks. But I mean, you have to assume that at some point these guys are going to turn it around. And I feel like the moment they both have a big game, it's like, oh, they're back. And their value is just going to skyrocket right back up. So like you almost have to ride out the wave with them. Again, Kelce has been bad, but he's not been as terrible as Mark Andrews. I mean, I'm hopeful that eventually Kelce will get things going. Andrews, on the other hand, it's a concern because obviously, I mentioned it this past week, like, oh, the Ravens can run the ball this week. They're going to run the ball. And they sure did because Lamar Jackson had 15 attempts. And, at that point you could say, oh, well, 15 attempts, like how many Mark Andrews should have 4 or 5 of them. But like, how can Mark Andrews get opportunities if Jackson's throwing 15 times a game? So like, that's a concern, but he also only played like 33% of the snaps, which makes no sense. Like, I don't understand what they're doing unless he's injured and they're not telling us. Like, it's very frustrating, but like at the time being, you have to unfortunately continue to ride them out for a few more weeks because you drafted them high and they're top tier names, and dropping them, I feel like you'll hate yourself if you drop them at this point. You have to give it a few more weeks and hope for the best with these guys. That's really it is when it comes to both these players. Some other wide receivers, I just wanted to name some name version wide receivers. Tyler Lockett, besides that week 1 game, it's been kind of quiet, you can say, for the most part the last 2 weeks here. You still holding on to Tyler Lockett?
Yeah, I'm still holding him. Outside of the big blow up game for JSN that everyone had dreamed of last week against New England, Tyler Lockett goes out and puts up another 8 targets. He only turns it into 5 for 46, no big plays or anything like that. But, outside of JSN's 1 big game, he returned, I want to say, to a 2 target week this past week, 3 targets. So JSN, 2 targets, 2 receptions, and 3 targets, 3 receptions week 1 and 3. And Tyler Lockett, 7 targets, 6 receptions in week 1, and then 8 targets, 5 receptions this week. So he's still getting the target share. we had our one big blow up game from JSN. But I'm going to hold him if he continues to get this target share. If it becomes a little bit more sporadic, I might look to move off of him. But if he's pulling in 7-8 targets a week outside of one random game, I am happy holding on to him.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I'm only holding on to him if I need help at wide receiver. If I don't need help at wide receiver, I feel like the opportunity for him to really do a lot just isn't there. And an offense that has a lot of mouths to eat in Seattle, and they do really want to run the ball there in Seattle. So like Tyler Lockett, like he's going to have opportunities, absolutely. But like if I need a running back, if I need a backup tight end now, if I need a quarterback change, like Lockett's going to be unfortunately a go for me. But like if you need a wide receiver, yeah, keep him. But like he's not a must-hold option on my bench right now. I just don't see the upside with him. I don't think he's going to have a lot of games where he's going to break out for like big numbers for fantasy. Similar to what kind of feel about Tank Dell right now, honestly. I mean, Tank Dell coming off a decent week here, 5 catches, 62 yards, finally some kind of production out of him. But when is he going to have his big moments? Like we saw that Nico Collins is the big downfield guy, 80 some yards this past week. Fantastic. And then give Stephon Diggs the ball another 12 times. Like it's really hard to find opportunities that Tank Dell is going to have his moments of really glory. And I think I see him similar as Lockett right now, where like, if I need him, I need him. If I don't need him as a wide receiver 3 or 4 on my team right now, and he's my wide receiver 5, like I'm probably going to cut him for a running back or something right now and let someone else have him. I know you don't probably feel the same way, Coach Charlotte, but.
No, I honestly do. I mean, just kind of the way that he's integrated into the offense. He had been the first couple weeks kind of a gadget guy. Obviously, the Texans were throwing a little bit more this past week, trying to, stay in a game that they were just not keeping up in. But he really didn't get a ton of work until, the fourth quarter, until things had kind of already finished up. He just isn't seeing the looks that Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins are. He's not being utilized how he was last year when he was blowing up for everyone. So I'm honestly okay cutting him. I do like kind of how you said it. If you have him and you need him, keep him. If you don't need him, then you're okay, even if you pawn him off on one of your league mates for a trade.
Right, absolutely. And Brandon Ayuk, I'm just going to do this one quickly here. You just hold on to him still. He's still going to have his opportunities on this offense. Don't think about cutting him just yet. So, all right, let's get over the waiver wire segment here. We're running out of time today. So let's start with the quarterbacks. Obviously, some top options at quarterback if you're looking for quarterbacks this week here. And I forgot to look up who Geno Smith is playing this week. I should really do that real quick here. Seattle plays Detroit this week. So Seattle plays Detroit. So Geno Smith, Sam Darnold versus Green Bay, Justin Fields versus the Colts, Andy Dalton versus Cincinnati Bengals, a revenge game, and Deshaun Watson plays the Raiders here. So those are the top options at quarterback, in my opinion. Coach Tyler, is anyone that sticks out to you that you want people to pick up?
Justin Fields, kind of like we talked about, a run game against Indy. He could break loose and, run in a long touchdown. I fully believe he's capable of that. But Andy Dalton, he came out and he looked fantastic. It was kind of a joke last week whenever we were preparing for our show and I saw Andy Dalton was going to be the starter. I texted Coach Steve and said, Andy Dalton's a must start, right? Yes, he is. Cincinnati's a little bit tougher defense, but we talked about his one game last year that he started, and he went for 361-2. And this week he goes for 319-3. Like, just nothing changes. So if he can keep up that pace, I'm perfectly happy grabbing Andy Dalton if he's still on your waivers, especially with how he ran the offense and how more revitalized it looked. Compared to Bryce Young, I think it's a while before we see Bryce Young on the field again. So you should get a decent chunk of the season out of Andy Dalton, barring injury.
I like it. For those who play in Dynasty, you should definitely be considering targets if you're in Superflex League, like Tim Boyle. Skylar Thompson may or may not play. Tim Boyle looked more competent as the quarterback. Tyler Huntley was on the practice squad. He may be elevated and he may start this week. So again, they're not great options, but they're an option. Tyler Heineke, Easton Sticks. Justin Herbert's injury may force him to miss week 4. So you might want to be able to pick these guys up if you can. Mason Rudolph. Again, Will Levis continues to turn the ball over. They may make a switch at quarterback sooner than later. And then if Aiden O'Connell happened to be still out, he might have got dropped. People think that Gardner Minshew week 2 savior game against the Ravens. Aiden O'Connell got back on the field, and head coach Antonio Pierce said there may be a change coming. So keep that in mind. So quarterback options aren't great, but there are some options if you're streaming this week to kind of get your buy in this matchup, especially like the top 5 guys here. So, all right, running backs now. Top running backs off the board here this week. Your top options are Bucky Irving, Braylon Allen, Alexander Madison, Cam Akers if he's still out there, Roshan Johnson, and Rico Dowling. Those are the top options. Coach Tyler, who's your best guy that you want people to pick up this week?
I really like Bucky Irving. It's honestly sort of reminiscent. If I remember right, the head coach that the Buccaneers hired, Robinson, comes from the Rams system, comes from the McVay.
Yeah, Zach Robinson, yeah.
Yeah. And, all offseason I was talking about how Robinson. I think it's Zach Robinson, if I remember.
No, that's the Falcons. I'll look him up. You keep going.
I just remember, I want to say he's from the Rams. I could be completely wrong on that.
Liam Cohen.
Their head coach?
For the head coach. I thought you said OC.
No, I was thinking head
coach. Todd Boyles.
Oh, they saw. Oh my gosh, I'm just all mixed up. Anyways, Bucky Irving, extremely efficient this year. My point that I was going to go with into the Ram system just doesn't work. But yeah, extremely efficient. He's averaging, I want to say it's over 5-6 yards a carry. And obviously, that's on all under 35% snap share in these games. He's going out and he's being extremely efficient, making the most of his touches. He's averaging, 3 targets week 1 and week 3, didn't have any in week 2. But the coaching staff has noticed, they've taken notice, and they are saying that they're going to get him more snaps. And it makes sense because when you have someone this explosive, especially with how sadly inefficient Rachaad White has been this season, you kind of have to take that jump and see what happens. So I like Bucky Irving. The coaching staff seems committed to getting him the ball more. And if he continues to average these kind of numbers with those touches, then you're set up for fantasy gold.
Yeah, he's one player that has a really high chance of actually becoming the starter for his respective team. So like Bucky Irving makes sense, and I think he's just a better pure runner than Rachaad White is. Again, I like my top 6 guys here: Allen, Madison. Like Madison might have the starting job soon. Cam Akers might have it for a few more weeks. Roshan Johnson might get opportunities with DeAndre Swift struggles right now, so he may be an option. And Rico saw much more playing time than Zeke Elliott this past week. But some other options you can consider: Antonio Gibson, Tyron Tracy Jr., Emmanuel Wilson played really well this past week. Some IR guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Keontae Mitchell. Those guys might be trying time to pick them up and put them on your team now to see if maybe they have value. Kareem Hunt still, and if Tank Bigsby, any reason, something happens to Travis Etienne tonight, Tank Bigsby becomes a guy that you might want to consider. And then in Dynasty, Tyler Batty, he should probably be picked up right now and see if he's gotten back-to-back really solid games on minimal touches. Might be something worth owning in Dynasty right now just to see what happens with him. So he's another guy. Over to wide receivers here. Right, the top options at wide receiver this week. DeAndre Hopkins, Jawan Jennings, the three touchdown man, Alan Lazard, Tutu Atwell, and Jalen Nair. Coach Tyler, who is your top option for people to pick up at wide receiver?
Of these 5?
I mean, it could be anyone. It doesn't have to be those 5.
Yeah.
Those are just mine.
There's a couple of these 5 that I really like. Alan Lazard, obviously we know that he has the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, came over from Green Bay to be with Aaron Rodgers when he got to the Jets. And obviously his total stats are boosted because of, a great week 1 game, but he's sitting at wide receiver 14 right now in PPR scoring. And, a lot of that does come from his 26.9 points in week 1. But we still see, week 2, down week. Week 2 is just a weird down week for everyone, apparently. So, but week 3, he only gets 3 targets, but he turns that into 48 yards and a touchdown, averaging 16 yards a reception. So he's getting downfield. Rodgers obviously has trust in him, has that relationship with him, or Lazard would have never come to New York. So I like Lazard, and I like Naylor. He has kind of stepped up in place of Jordan Addison. We're still not completely sure when Jordan Addison is coming back, but we see, 9 points, full PPR in week 1, and then double digits against a San Francisco secondary that's pretty good, and then a Houston secondary that's pretty good with a touchdown every game this season. So I like Naylor as long as Addison is out, and even possibly whenever Addison comes back.
No. Uncle Ted, Tyler Batty. Every team needs a Batty.
Every team needs a Batty.
We forgot Jalen Tolbert, and I agree with you. I probably should have put Jalen Tolbert in this top 5 here. He's on my others to consider list, as you can see down at the bottom here. Jalen Tolbert is on here, so I didn't completely forget about him, but I probably should have put him in the top 5 or top 6 at least, or added another line for him. Respect on his name. But other guys to consider: Wanda Robinson, Darnell Mooney's been looking really good for the Falcons. Jahan Dotson might be the wide receiver 1 in Philly this week, so you might want to consider him as an option if Devonta Smith can't play through the concussion. You might want to start buying back into the Packers wide receivers, who probably have been dropped a lot, and Jordan Love is hopefully going to come back next week. But Uncle Ted said here, Zamir White, FYI, stinks. He sure does. He sure does. Demario Douglas, the team wanted to get him involved, and they sure did last week. So that might be something to moving forward. And then a couple of IR guys. Kendrick Bourne might be coming back to the Patriots. That might help them out a little bit. Ricky Pearsall is going to be coming off the IR in a week or 2. So those are other guys to consider to pick up on, put on your roster now before they become actually known names to people in waiver wire segments moving forward. So, and then finally, tight end guys. Top options here. We have the tight end Cole Kmet, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, Tyler Conklin, and Noah Fant. Coach Tyler, any one player that you really sticks out to you?
Cole Kmet's kind of had, obviously this past game, he had a great week. But, he's starting to get used a lot more, especially with the lack of Keenan Allen that we've been seeing for the Bears. We see his increases in targets, 1 in week 1, 5 last week, and then 11 in week 3. Obviously, the 11 is not going to continue. It's not going to be sustainable unless Caleb Williams really just falls in love with him. But if you watch the Bears game, if you watch how they're using Cole Kmet, if you see how the offense is actually beginning to allow him to run routes and be open and be a part of this offense, it's something that would excite you. I obviously don't think he's going to go out there. I think there's going to be more weeks where he's getting those 5 targets than he is the 11. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, Caleb Williams is a young quarterback. Most young quarterbacks like to lean on their tight ends, and Cole Kmet isn't a bad tight end at all, right? We've seen the history past 2 years, top 8 years, in both PPR and half PPR for Cole Kmet. And so he's a guy that has the skill, has the talent, and I think that Caleb Williams is finally sort of wisening up and leaning on Cole Kmet.
Yeah, no, I agree. Cole Kmet, he might be a little bit more roster than some people, but he definitely was dropped over the last few weeks. And obviously the team stopped doing this whole Gerald Everett combo thing that they were doing. They gave the ball back to Cole Kmet. So he deserves to be the top spot this week. Uncle Ted said Luke Schoonmaker. Yes, Luke Schoonmaker is an interesting option. Ferguson struggling with injuries. Yes, he is. Sure is. I didn't put him on the list just because I saw Ferguson looked healthy in this past week's game here, but Luke Schoonmaker is a name to continually monitor throughout the season if something more happens with Jake Ferguson, causing him to miss games, because we obviously saw Dallas 2 weeks ago, loves using their tight ends no matter who is playing tight end. Other options, Tommy Trumbull had a decent outing with Andy Dalton, might be something there. I put Noah Fant's name twice, so I must really like Noah Fant for some reason. And Brenton Strange, if Evan Ingram is going to miss week 4, maybe week 5 with his injuries. Brenton Strange, if he plays well enough tonight, is someone that I would have that consideration for, not right now when you do your waivers, but late week in the season. So, and then for dynasty leagues, Elijah Higgins, Brock Wright, with those injuries at their tight end position there, you might want to go get some of those guys and pick them up. Elijah Higgins has a lot of upside. Brock Wright's pretty solid overall tight end, good blocker. Uncle Ted likes him, looked solid. He sure did look solid. So those might be possible options for you as well. So, but that is going to end our waiver wire segment tonight, guys. We thank you all for listening in tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you found this beneficial and found some good players, hopefully to pick up for your waivers this coming week here. Coach Tyler, anything you want to say before we get going?
Yeah, go check out Dynasty Nerds. Use code COACH when you get over there. Sign up for the Dynasty GM, Dynasty Film Room. If you're like me, you're watching a ton of college football on Saturdays, and then you're going in there and getting ready for your 2025 drafts. Ashton Genty deserves to be your 101. But, go check out Dynasty Nerds. Coach Steve does a lot in season. I'll do some more stuff as it gets to Devy in the draft. Thank y'all for tuning in.
Absolutely, guys. And we thank you guys for listening, whether you're listening live on our YouTube channel, which I highly recommend because it's always a fun show, or if you're listening after on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, we truly appreciate it. We'll be back on Thursday, guys. We'll be giving you guys start and sits for week 4. A lot of fun on that. And until then, guys, enjoy the rest of your Monday night football games, and we'll see you guys on Thursday. Have a good one, guys.
Back to back is not far-fetched. We got a couple of Clark